Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to this live stream. Today we're going to be speaking about student activism. Why is it important for you as a university graduate or you as a university active student to become a shield for the Uyghurs, to become a defender of the Uyghur cause? Why are you special as a graduate or as a current student for the Uyghur cause? Now, with me today is Arsalan. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah. So, just a quick introduction. Why this topic is so important. So, something I just want to highlight is Uyghur Freedom Organization. Obviously, we focus on universities. That's our remit, right? That's why the organization was set up. So, Arsalan, someone can ask us, why did you guys set up the Uyghur Freedom Organization and focus on universities and university students? Because it seems like such a niche top thing. Isn't it better to just go directly to the media like Turkestan does, or do direct lobbying to Congress? Why have a separate organization only dealing with universities? It seems like a kind of, it seems too narrow. It seems too niche. What's the point of it?
Well, let's start off with why students should be involved in activism in the first place. One, you've got time. Most students, unless you're doing like a part-time job, you're focused on your studies, you're focused on political and current issues, and we have a genocide that's happening. And let's just say you were a student back in the time when the Nazis were around, one, you wouldn't have an idea that Jews were being slaughtered on a daily basis. But now today, you've got access to satellite imagery, the media, research, witness testimony, evidence, footage of a genocide that's happening, and you've got time on your hands, and the money that you have been making. For example, you don't have, generally speaking, you're not taking care of a family, you don't have children. So you've got resources on hand to be able to point this out and educate others. And as a student, you're able to take in that knowledge and that time and to be able to educate others on the situation. And so why not just go straight to the MPs? Well, the MPs are not being pressured to do anything. So, for example, recently we had a vote in Australia to recognize what's happening to the Uyghurs as a genocide, and MPs did not vote for it. They did not give that genocide recognition or determination because they're not pressured to, and they haven't been, educated enough, and the pressure's not there. And what's happening today? Western universities are a big. China uses them as a big drive to put their soft power in Western societies. One, they not only teach the language and just general Chinese culture, but to normalize what they've been doing with the various oppressions of not just Uyghurs, but other minorities like Tibetans in Hong Kong and Taiwan. They're using that and they're putting pressure. They're using their economic power and their manpower. Manpower meaning Chinese students. Chinese students bring millions and millions of dollars every year to Western universities. And they are affecting Western society and students in general. That age bracket between 18 and up to 30, if not slightly older, that's most of the population. And anything older, people are too busy with their family, and that age group is the most active age group within our society. So if you're not involved in activism, you're involved in other trivial things that don't matter. And remember, you use your time, use your age, use your energy that you have, because it doesn't last long, and do something meaningful so that at the end of the day, when you are like in your 40s, 50s, or 60s, you can go back, you know what, I did something great and good and for an actual cause. And perhaps a genocide that was supposed to go for 10 years ended up going for 9 years. or went for 8 years or 7 years. So any difference matters, no matter how small it may be. And coming together, putting this together is such a big thing.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I just want to highlight here the power of this activism, like what it leads to. So Arsalan, yourself and me, we were on a live stream some weeks back with Louisa Grieve, right? And we did a talk at Howard University alongside the other universities in America. And I just want to show this as an example for everybody, is that the live stream was obviously something in which we were just talking to students. We were saying to them, look, it's time for you to get in there, to use your energy, to do what you can to support the Uyghur cause. And what happened, subhanallah, is that the brother who set up that talk, Imtiazul Qadir, he was so passionate about the Uyghur cause that after the talk, off his own back, he just said to me, I'm going to set up this event. I said, yeah, go ahead, Bismillah. And, I said, whatever support you want, I will try and facilitate that. So what the brother did is that he went ahead and he put this event, which you can see, which is happening tomorrow, right? So this is actually an event which is taking place tomorrow. Now, what's powerful is that he got universities from across the world to actually join this event. And I just want to show you guys, those are lists of universities, Western universities, universities in Europe, in North America and Australasia, which have joined this cause. Now, that is phenomenal when you think about it. That is a huge number of universities which are joining. And so far, just that one brother, Imtiazul, through his effort, we have, I don't know, there's maybe 70 universities here. 70 universities. And that's just one student who went on a juggernaut mission, got all these students ready. And by the way, these are being added every day. And I believe by the event tomorrow, we're going to have, inshallah, tomorrow's event, we're going to have a minimum of 100 universities from around the world, inshallah, right? So that's just one student who went on a rampage and said, no, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Even if we look at students who are active today, like Muhammad Hijab, right? Now, Muhammad Hijab is actually a student. He's actually doing a full-time master's. He's doing, studies. And he's dedicated. I just want to just show everybody, how important this is. He's dedicated one time of the week where he comes over to the office and we just do videos on the Uyghur issue. And this last week, I think he did something like 6 videos on the topic.
Wow.
Like these are students, he's a student. I was speaking to Imran Hussain today. He's again another student as well, although he's working. And, he's got plans that every person that I speak to that's very active in the Uyghur issue, they're most likely a student. And I think you're absolutely right about that.
Yeah. As you mentioned, obviously those people that, are being active and leading in a way. So for example, the brother that got 70 odd and perhaps we're going to have 100 universities. Need that support as well. Not everyone's going to be on the front line. We do need some running backs, so to speak, and that support to push that through. And it does make a difference. And we sort of get this thing like, is it really going to make a difference? Well, think about it. That's your role. There are other roles that different people will play, and it will catch on. And the real players, the MPs and those that facilitate the laws and get that genocide determination and have that moving, they'll read into this and catch onto it, and we'll also get their support. I mean, it's the only way, the only legal means that we can go about this, because there isn't any other way at the moment. I mean, it's easy to say, we should sanction, we should boycott, and but that's not in our hands to sanction countries, So yeah, whatever you do, that little trickle that you do does turn into a wave at the end of the line.
It does. It does indeed. So let's go over what students can actually do. Now, the first thing that we're obviously asking for, which you explained quite well, is general activism, right? Off campus activism, social media activism. When the coronavirus subsides and then students are back on the campus, they can actually obviously do events and so on and so forth and put up posters and do these. So you get the activism. The second thing is cutting off the link between the Chinese government-linked companies like Huawei and their university, and finding out if they work together and then working against that. Third thing is to lobby the MPs, so the members of parliament. Before I get into this, I want you to talk about how IPAC is linked to this. How is IPAC linked to this issue of lobbying MPs? Because I think a lot of people are not aware that there is a dedicated organization which is working at the parliamentary level. And you just did a live stream just on this channel in Talkies Turkestan with somebody very important. And when I saw that you had an interview with him, I automatically was like, wow, that's like a very important person. But a lot of people won't realize how important he is and how important IPAC is for the Uyghur cause.
Yeah, so IPAC is basically a coalition of ministers, MPs, but shadow ministers. So they're technically not in power, from Western countries, and some. I believe there's also Japanese ministers as well, and they've come together and they've come together because the UN has not done its job in defending the human rights of Uyghurs, and so they've come together and like they're from Canada, Australia, the UK, the United States, and they've come together and to raise the voices of the Uyghurs in Parliament. And generally speaking, every time you hear the Uyghur issue in Parliament is from these shadow ministers, not necessarily the government themselves. And so if you just type in IPAC or Interparliamentary Alliance against China, you can see that. And I will be interviewing a few more of those people, especially from the UK. And so, it's basically UN 2.0 kind of thing. But in that coalition, there aren't there are no representatives from Muslim countries or Turkic nations. It's basically like European, American, and Australian group, and they have become very influential. They've come out with reports, with evidence, because a lot of the situation seems to be, for example, I was getting comments like, "Oh, how's this report?" Because I urge everyone to read that report and educate yourself as a student, called the China's Deepening Darkness, or the Darkness Deepens report. And read it, share it with your professors, share it with people of influence, educate your family on that. And so with evidence, and people are saying, well, how is that report different to, say, the weapons of mass destruction report where we started the war against Iraq? This is like proper evidence, like satellite imagery, testimony, Chinese documents, where those sort of things never came out of. You didn't have that in the WMD report at all. This is stuff that from CCP hands, and the evidence you can't. You have to accept it because it's in black and white. So that organization is very, very important.
Yeah, and the way I was thinking about it is, when we look at the power within a society, the power doesn't really lie with the masses. The masses can influence those who have power, but it's really a few group of people who really have that power, and those are the members of parliament in each Western nation. Yeah. And the thing which is I think a lot of people don't understand, for you to have effective change, you don't need like millions of people signing a petition. Even a handful of members of parliament in a country can make a difference that maybe 5% of the population or 10% of the population, if they were to write a petition or do a march, they couldn't do what a few MPs can actually do. So a little bit about Benedict Rogers. Could you explain his role in IPAC and what you guys discussed as well?
So he is an advisor. He's actually got a few different roles. Just let me pull up his sort of CV. I don't want to get any information wrong.
Yeah.
But yeah, he has been involved with China for a few decades now. He lived in Hong Kong between 97 and 2002, and very much involved. He's an expert on what's been happening in Myanmar for a long time as well. So he himself calls himself a human rights activist and writer. He's specializing in Asia in general. He's the co-founder and chief executive of Hong Kong Watch.
Oh yes.
Yeah, so Hong Kong Watch is a big organization covering basically what's been happening in Hong Kong for the past, especially 2 years. A senior analyst for East Asia at the human rights organization called CSW, and he's an advisor to the Inter-Parliamentary Alliance on China, and he's also and for the Stop Uyghur Genocide campaign. He's a member of the board of the China Democracy Foundation and the co-founder and deputy chair of the UK Conservative Party Human Rights Commission. So that's the organization that came up with the Darkness Deepens report. And he lived in Hong Kong, as I mentioned, and he's actually banned from entry into China because of his work. So you've got the right person on the job when the CCP bans you and recognizes your work. So, and again, an expert in what happened to Myanmar. And through him, he even says China has a lot of influence in Myanmar, supplying the coup, the army, the weapons to continue, because China just loves when, a country falls apart, the army takes it, because literally China is run by an army, the PLA, with Xi Jinping at its head. He's a general. He's the top chairman, general, president. He's got all these positions just attributed to him, and dictator for life, as you know. Yeah. So yeah, a major player in anti-CCP rhetoric and
And now we can talk about how students can, in their own countries, find out about what IPAC is doing and then support them. So for example, IPAC in each particular country is doing different things. So IPAC, in terms of the UK, we have the Trade Amendment Bill, right, which is being discussed. And in short, what it is we need to lobby MPs so that they support Uyghur, the British government not being able to do business with countries that commit genocide. Now, it may sound odd, it may sound self-evident that because a country is committing a genocide, the British government or any other Western government would not do business with it, but that's not actually true. So this organization, IPAC, is actually working behind the scenes to lobby MPs, because if they manage to get this through, it's endgame for China, Chinese influence and CCP infiltration and all of the sort of links which are there live right now.
Yeah, you said it. So get into contact with your MPs, and generally, if you talk to them directly, you'll be from IPAC. You're pretty much preaching to the choir, but getting into, because you guys have access to your own parliament, set up an appointment. Bring along a Uyghur who who still has family in concentration camps. Have those MPs listen to their stories, and that's how the genocide bill or the recognition of genocide and the Uyghur bill was passed in the United States. It was literally Uyghurs knocking on the doors of their senators and having a 5-10 minute conversation with them. And together with social media as well. So it makes a huge difference.
And yes, exactly. And like you rightly pointed out, that personal element where you get the MP to listen to the Uyghurs who've been through this. The other thing, like you said, is the students who we can rely on to actually do this, because they have the free time to contact the MPs to set up. And they remember, the MP wants to be elected again, right?
Yeah.
The MP wants to be popular. It's in their self-interest. The fact that somebody from their area is contacting them and saying, look, I want to have a meeting with you. One, they have to respond by not law, but by courtesy. Their secretary or somebody else has to respond. We've contacted MPs as well. And the thing is, they will, even if they can't give you time, they'll say, okay, speak to this person, but the message will get through. The people who voted for you are asking about the Uyghurs. That's basically what's going on. And students are key. Students are the future. The people in the universities, they're going to be the future politicians. They're going to be the future lawyers, doctors, engineers. So there's a huge amount of pressure that can be put by students on university campuses, right? So could you just explain what this is, Arslan?
So, Brother Sabur, yeah, so I just wanted to point out actually what looks like, if you go through the list of MPs in the Interparliamentary Alliance, most of them seem to be from the UK. So I just want to show you guys this list so that you may, perhaps take them down, organize a meeting with them. So it looks like to be 4, 10, 16, 22, 28, 34, 40. Wow.
By the way,
45 MPs. That's like the most in this group. You've only got a few from the United States.
Yeah. So if you just scroll down slightly, can you see slightly up? There's Sister.
Are you looking for Nusrani?
No. Just here. Just if you could stop, please. Yeah. Her name is Shabana Mahmood MP. Right. Now, this sister is actually from Birmingham, and she is very vocal about the Uyghur issue. If you look at her Twitter feed, you would just think she's a Uyghur activist, right? So, inshallah, I mean, she's one of the people I'm trying to reach out to for an interview on this channel, because you're absolutely right. I mean, these are, of course, supporters, but they can help us on how to approach the other MPs and find out how we can support the Uyghurs. Now, this level of lobbying and this level of thinking and the time that's required to do all these types of things, it is students who we expect to do this. So let me just highlight for everybody who's watching right now, again, just going over the steps that we were speaking about earlier. So the first step is social media and campus activism, right? Secondly, cutting off the links to Chinese Communist Party linked companies in your university. Third is to lobby the MPs. Now, obviously, these MPs are on board, but the other MPs who, just to check with your local MP, do you support the Uyghur cause? Do you support we should cut off trade with China because of its Uyghur genocide? 4, boycott their products. Students have massive purchasing power. When you go to the high street and you look at the latest fashion stuff, it's not 30-year-olds and 40-year-olds and 50-year-olds who are buying that stuff. It's the late teens and the early 20s, right? It's those people who have the purchasing power, those people who would splash out, £500-600 on a jacket, right? Well, don't buy your jacket from Zara. Don't buy your jacket from these companies that don't frankly care about using Uyghur forced labor. And fifth, and which is actually the easiest, is educate yourself in terms of everything that's happening around the Uyghur issue. So what is IPAC? What is going on currently in my country in regards to this issue? And all of these things collectively, these 5 points that I mentioned, these are very important for students to actually get involved in, because they have time. Now, Arsalan, we've covered quite thoroughly, I believe, the issue to do with lobbying MPs, right? Email your MP, give them a call, say, do you support the Uyghurs? Would you stop trade? Would you support that our government stop trade with China? Would you support that we boycott the products that come in from Chinese occupied East Turkestan? So let's move on to another very important area amongst the areas that I mentioned, which is cutting off the link between the Chinese Communist Party and your local university. Okay, so before I get into this, Arsalan, some people may be wondering, why would China be so interested in Western universities? Why on earth does China, according to latest statistics, send out 600,000, not 6,000, not 60,000, 600,000, that's over 500,000 students into Western universities every year? And why are they so interested in the technologies which are being developed at Western universities? Surely they could just all do all this stuff in China. So why is this so important for the Chinese communist regime?
It works on two levels. The initial sending away of students is not necessarily an idea by the CCP themselves. China's Communist Party members that work for the Chinese Communist Party, they know who they are. They know that one way or another, when they get too powerful, when they get too influential, that they themselves will be locked up one way or another. This generally tends to happen just throughout history. So what these party members do is they send away their kids to the West because the West is safe, is safer than China. They use that and they launder and they, get rid of their money out of China so it's safe in Western banks. That's one. That's one reason why and how Chinese students go to the West. It's basically a ticket for the whole family to leave as well. Number two, China saw this.
Sorry, Aslan, just to apologize for cutting you off. Can you go into a little bit more detail about that? Because I don't think that topic deserves to. It probably deserves its own episode. But I just want to ask a few questions about this.
Sure.
Are you basically saying that the Chinese students which are coming to Western universities, they're not just some rural poor child from a village? We're talking about the elite of the Chinese Communist parties, their students. It's their students which are coming to these Western universities. So when you're in your local university, and of course, we're not promoting xenophobia here. We're just pointing out something, just a descriptive fact, which is that you're bumping into the families and the children of very wealthy Chinese Communist Party officials. We're not talking about some random village children just attending Western universities, are we?
Exactly. These guys, I'm sure you see them in the UK rocking around in Bentleys and Ferraris. And that money that they use is off the backs of the oppression. So in one way or another, from the Belt and Road Initiative, one way or another through Uyghur slavery, one way or another. So that oppressive money itself is being used to, in the West, that's how they get their ticket out. And then they're going to use their thought. Then the Chinese, the government, controls these students to make sure that they don't speak out. Like they essentially are working for the Chinese Communist Party themselves, and they create a huge influence in amongst students, and even it gets to a stage where the heads of student unions are those Chinese students themselves. There was a situation, I forget which country now, where this movement started of, calling out the Confucius institutes, trying to get them banned. And the head of one of the student unions, sorry,
Arslan, you jumped ahead slightly, right?
Yeah.
What are Confucius centers? Because you just said that in a passing comment. That's very significant.
Yeah. So the Confucius Institute it's got nothing to do with Confucius himself. Confucius himself was, a philosopher from thousands of years ago. It's basically a gateway for Westerners to know about China, but only the good stuff. You'll never ever hear anything bad about China at all from students or the institute. And they'll actually talk about not just how they build their roads and how China has uplifted millions out of poverty. You'll hear about them justifying the oppression of Uyghurs, Tibetans, Hong Kong. The like Chinese propaganda is fed through these institutions, and that's why people are confused because they have been fed these lies. So when people like you and I come up on the screen and tell a different narrative, they'll go, but I've been hearing something from my university, and why would my university, that's been around for 50, 60, 70 years, promote such a thing? Well, money. And so it's working, unfortunately, because the money that's coming from these Chinese students is so influential, and it does fund a lot of the programs. It funds buildings, it funds extra land that the university will build, and expansion and all this. But at the end, in one way or another, UK citizens will pay for it. And as I mentioned, if this was happening and Hitler was setting up, Nazi schools or a branch of Nazi or fascism in Western universities, we wouldn't have it. And you have to ask yourself, if the opposite were to happen, if the UK government wanted to open up, say, such a branch in China, would it happen? No way. No way that would ever happen. They would not give permission to do so. And China and it's thousands of students going into these Western universities. And every time pro-Hong Kong, pro-Uyghur, pro-Tibetan protests are organized by these university or students, you have all these Chinese students rally against them, pick fights. But imagine the same thing happened in China. Could you imagine 20 English students on the streets of Beijing go free Tibet, free the Uyghurs? They would be arrested and put in jail. That's what would happen, and they would never see the light of day, get no diplomatic representation, and and that's just reality.
Yeah, and you raised some very significant points there. One of the things I was thinking about is one of the quick actions that you can do is talk to your Chinese students. Don't assume they know what you know. Don't assume they've heard of Tibet, they've heard of the Uyghurs. They live in a sort of bubble, and there's a language barrier as well. So Arslan, I want to point out something to you that I came across recently. And I just want your thoughts on this, right? So recently I found out about a case where a Chinese student was saying something negative against the Chinese government in a Western university. Somehow that night or the very next day, the Chinese police turned up at that student's house in China. And the student is in a Western university. So here we have a student speaking up against China in a Western university. And what it turns out to be the case is another student saw him complaining, so he contacted the Chinese police, right? Like when I'm obviously saying this, I'm sure a lot of people firstly must be thinking, no, that's not really possible. And two, if it did happen, it must be rare. It can't be that in the first world, in such a sophisticated the Western countries with all of its laws and all of its rights, Chinese students would be terrified, and in fact would be blackmailed while they're living in the West. I mean, is that something you believe that is happening on a large scale?
It's not just students, but yes, if a student were to speak on campus, that would happen just every day. As long as you are a Chinese citizen of any sort and you speak against the CCP, your family will be threatened in China. And this always happens. So even if you talk to lay Chinese people who have lived in the UK for 10, 20 years, and they have every opportunity to speak out against the government, they won't. They won't do it. And even a lot of testimony that we get. So, for example, inshallah, we'll be interviewing someone tomorrow, and she's living in the free world, and she's going to come on with a mask. She's not going to show her face. So that threat is always there, and that student, for him to do that, he must have gone through something extra. Now, what China will do is, right, they'll go, stop talking about us. Look at all the problems in the UK. Look at all the problems in America. Look at all the problems in Australia. But the thing is, right, if you talk about the UK and I talk about my Australian government and all the atrocities that have been happening in Australia, nothing's going to happen to me. And number two, it's already talked about. It's in the media. What all the bad stuff that happens in our own countries. The difference is China hides that, and anyone that decides to open it up, you will be in big trouble. So, for example, recently, an African fella who resides in China, made a video and posted on Facebook about how he wasn't being treated properly in hospital, and he was just talking about the reality of the situation. He wasn't talking against the government and stuff Xi Jinping and the government. No, he was just like, these hospitals are not taking care of me in this situation, and he's been deported. And so let's just say you were to highlight not oppression. Let's just say, oh look, China's going through a lot of poverty. Look at this street. Look at all these poor people. You highlight that, you go to jail for highlighting just what's happening. So. Yeah, and what you say is very, very real.
Yeah, absolutely.
And to talk to Chinese students, I would advise that you try and find someone Chinese who is already anti-CCP to try and convey the message to those people that have come from China, because they can talk on another, the sort of same wavelength. Yeah, that seems to work better.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I would also say is that, in a way, when we look at the oppression that was happening against the Jewish people in Nazi Germany, we had very good moral Germans who tried to save the Jews. They tried to, do something to stop this. In fact, a lot of the German population didn't know what was going on. Now, there's been comments, right, that, well, are most Chinese people supporting this? Why are they not speaking up? What's going on? So I just wanted to highlight something, right? Chinese people who leave China and come to the West, you will be shocked. You will be shocked. They literally have been fed all their life so much propaganda. They don't know who to believe, and they are just scared. And the safest thing that they know is the Chinese government. So you'd be surprised. They don't know about Hong Kong, Tibet, Mongolia, East Turkestan. They have no idea about any of these things. So that's why it's important when we're talking to them, what we do is we come from an area of compassion, because, it's very easy for us to say, right, they're all evil. When the fact is, they are, in fact, the greatest asset in the fight against the Chinese government, because the Chinese government's mandate is, we will provide economic growth for our population, and the rest of you guys just shut up, just be quiet, we will give you economic, and everyone conforms. However, they live under such cruelty that if they rise up, like in Tiananmen, if Tiananmen happens again with the social media that we have now, I believe if Tiananmen happened in 2021, it would have been endgame for China. I really believe it, because most of China was under blackout. They didn't know what was happening. So once you get this movement, and if you look at the history of the Chinese people, they've had continuous and brutal oppression, and then they've had revolutions. It's not like they put up for it forever. In fact, a lot of Chinese history, and even at the time of Sun Tzu, there's the various kingdoms and they're fighting each other. So, they are a great asset, and we just need to use that asset. And then I believe the Chinese government is more frightened of its own citizens rising up against it than all of the criticism of the foreigners.
Exactly. That's why they take down anything. I mean, obviously by now you should know that Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of these, YouTube, are banned in China. And anything that is, any comments, any posts, any videos negative of the CCP or China in general is taken down. Those people are visited. Number two, if you want to use Chinese social media, right, you need to register it to your ID card. So anytime you post something, it's not like, oh, we're going to look through your IP address. Let's use, no. Your accounts are registered to your name. And if you don't register, you can't use that social media program. I just want to share something with you that's quite comical. Yeah. There is a video that's about to be nominated for an award. I believe the Academy Awards or Oscars are happening at the moment, right? And it's called Do Not Split. And this video is actually available on YouTube. It's for free, right? And the Global Times is Chinese state-run media. Look what they've posted, right? It says, Oscar-nominated film Do Not Split, which recorded violence in Hong Kong, should not win as it lacks artistry and is full of biased political stances. Otherwise, it will hurt Chinese audiences' feelings, okay? Now, my question here is, Chinese people in mainland China are not going to be able to watch this movie at all. And so what they've done is they promoted it. And what I'm trying to say here is that they're taking censorship to such a level that they don't even realize what they've posted doesn't make sense. How are Chinese people going to watch? They don't have access to YouTube, and they're not going to have access to anti-Chinese movies.
Yeah,
or what they deem as anti-Chinese. And right now, there's a Stop Asian Hate movement going on, and China is using that against the West. But China, in its history, I'm talking about the Chinese Communist Party, have killed the most Asians in world's history.
Yeah. Absolutely. And, you know, the first victim of the Chinese Communist Party is the Chinese people. The Cultural Revolution, the Great Leap Forward, Tiananmen Square, you know, Falun Gong, you know, all these things are basically evidence against China, claiming that, you know, they represent the Chinese people. They certainly don't. Now, when it comes back to the Western universities issue, you rightly pointed out why the students are here, how we can contact those students, how we can talk to them. But the Uyghur Freedom Organization, obviously, we're asking students to look at the links between their university and the Chinese government. And we've got a list of Chinese banned companies which shouldn't be, the universities shouldn't be working with, banned from the perspective that they've been banned in the United States because they have links with the Chinese government. And some of these actually have links with Western universities. So Google the name of your university, find out if they're working with these companies, and then petition your university to actually drop the deal through the student union, right? Here's the steps, right? So I'm just going to go over briefly what happened in Imperial College London, because I think that was a blueprint for everything that needs to happen, inshallah, in universities across the country and across the world, inshallah. So what happened in Imperial is, first, they did the first step, which we were saying, which is activism. Sometime last year, if you remember, Arsalan, they invited us to give a talk, right? After the talk, there was general awareness about the Uyghur issue, and many things that were said in the talk were new to the students, and that actually motivated the students. Now, what happened after the talk is, literally a few days later, I got contacted by one of the students saying, my university has a link with Huawei. What shall I do? And, you know, even though he was asking for advice, he actually knew what to do, which is to basically protest this. And so we went onto social media, if you remember, we pushed it out. We said Imperial shouldn't be working, and we put forward the petition, the change.org one. But anyway, that student, what he did is, together with other students, they put together a petition to the student union. The student union is the official body which represents the students of the university. All right. In America, I'm not sure what the name is. In Australia, I'm not sure what the name is. In the UK, we call them SU, the student union. The student union was given the motion that this is the evidence against imperial working with Huawei, because Huawei is complicit in oppression of the Uyghurs and other links with the Chinese government. The student union voted in favor of the motion, right? 24 to 3, right? So 24 voted in favor, 3 voted against. Now the graduate alumni president, who was a Chinese national, he was the one who's supporting Xi Jinping's trip to Imperial in 2015 when he came. He was on the committee. He voted against the deal being challenged. He lost, and in protest, he actually quit his job, because that's a full-time job when you're the graduate student. And once he quit, the Chinese state media actually interviewed him. They actually interviewed him, right? So now the student union is directly challenging the university and saying, we don't believe this is correct. And they're asking the university to produce paperwork to show that they've done their work. So why, and I want to ask you this, Arsalan, why did the Chinese state media want to interview the guy who was in the SU of Imperial? Why is it so important for them to work with these Western universities?
Well, the Chinese media wanted to interview that guy because they saw him as a hero. This guy quit his job to stand up for China and to stand up for the wrongs that was done, and that's why he was seen as a hero. And China always, that was, if I were to just answer your question, that's why he was interviewed. And to set an example for other Chinese students, if you come across such things, protest against it and show your solidarity with us. And then and to be honest, he really had no choice as well, because if he were to stand up for that cause, then his family would most likely be put in prison. His father or mother is most likely to be a Chinese Communist Party member, and they would be stripped of their positions, and they'd lose all their funds. And to an extent, these students also don't have that much choice. They'd be sacrificing a lot, their families, their wealth, and many other things as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, the Chinese government does not have the sophisticated technology which is being developed at Western universities. Let's look back at the Cold War. I mean, we're in a colder war right now, Cold War 2.0, but let's look back at the first Cold War. In the first Cold War, anybody who's a student of history knows universities in the Soviet Union and universities in the Western world played a absolutely crucial role, because the latest technologies were being developed at these universities. So when you had, say, the CIA or the KGB, and they wanted to develop some technology to spy on each other or for whatever purpose, they would go to not business centers, not labs. They would go to Western universities or Soviet universities and say, guys, we want this, guys, we want that. Even when we look at giant financial firms like, GlaxoSmithKline, or, companies linked to the military industrial complex, who do they go to for their research and development? Universities. China does not have, even though they try and claim they're the most sophisticated, and there's this type of Han chauvinism that they have. Even though they claim all of this, they are poor when it comes to technology. So that's why they're reliant on Imperial, on Oxford, on Cambridge, on MIT, on Harvard, on all these different universities across the Western world. And if we can sever that link between the Western world universities and the Chinese Communist state, we're cutting off a crucial intellectual supply line, something which actually really has a huge impact in terms of China's strategic goals. It's not a small thing. I would even go as far as saying, when we boycott Chinese products and we put an economic constraint on them, that has a huge impact. And most people will say that is the most important. I would actually categorize it in the following way. I would say the first and the most important way that we can do damage to the Chinese Communist Party is by working with people like IPAC, so that Western universities stop working with China. The second most important way is actually to stop the links between the Chinese government and these Western universities. That's like so important because it cuts off that intellectual supply line. And the third is generally boycotting Chinese products. All three of these, in this chronological order, this will sever the vein of the dragon. It will sever the vein of the Red Terror. Like, they will not be able to get past this infliction, because economically and politically and intellectually, they are dependent upon these links. And if we can sever them, then this is going to go a long, long way, inshallah.
Yeah, brother. So if you could just share what I've popped up on the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I just wanted to show the evidence for this. So last year, the US government revoked 1,000 Chinese student visas. Why? Because they were stealing intellectual property, property theft, stealing trade secrets from American innovators, harvesting personal data for profit. So this stuff is real. And as you mentioned, China doesn't invent anything. They steal. So a lot of the technology from Huawei and whatever they have with computers and microchips, it's all stolen. And they steal it through those students. And that's why those visas were revoked. And it's happening everywhere. So the hard work put in by your fellow English citizens, Americans, Australians is just being stolen. And even just from I don't know if you'd use the word patriotic level. Yeah, I mean, to an extent, you're gonna be proud of where you've come from, and so that threat is very real. And this hype of the technology and China's doing all these things to better the world and technology. No, way before that, any technology that was coming from China, it was coming from Taiwan.
Yes.
Not China itself. Taiwan was the hub, and Taiwan was dealing with the world, and that's how you got this HTC and Acer and all these brands coming from not China but from Taiwan.
Yep, and even Hong Kong, right?
Yeah, and Hong Kong, yeah.
Yeah, Hong Kong as well. So I think Alhamdulillah, in this live stream we've actually covered quite a bit about student activism. So I'm just gonna summarize what we've covered so far. So we want people to get involved in the following actions at university: social media and campus activism generally, right? That's extremely important. But even before that is just educating yourself in what's happening in terms of the Uyghur issue. And I cannot explain how important this is, because when it comes to it's a simple thing in human psychology. When you hear about the Holocaust, that has an impact. When you read the diary of Anne Frank, right, it has a totally different impact. When you watch The Boy in the Striped Pajamas, it's a totally different experience. When you start to meet and see concentration camp survivors from World War II, it has a different impact. And the more you look into it, the more you're affiliated with it and the more you buy into it. So I just want to really highlight the education part as well. And this is, by the way, for anybody who is a Ertugrul fan, right? Just the other day, I mean, I don't have enough time to watch, Ertugrul and stuff, but I happened to be watching a scene. And Arsalan, this was very important, right? And I just thought, subhanAllah, it's almost like Allah's given me even though I was watching a very small segment of an episode, Allah's given me exactly what I needed to actually talk about when it comes to his Uyghur issue. There was a person who came from a distant land, and he was a traveler, and he he sort of escaped that because there was a war going on there. And somebody asked him, where did you come from? Right? Where did you come from? And the guy replies, I've come from Turkestan. Right? So obviously he's referring to the ancient land of Turkestan, which spans, you could say, from pretty much the Caspian Sea all the way to modern day East Turkestan.
Yeah,
right?
like to the Great Wall of China even.
Exactly, right? Now what's very important is that this area, and I ask everyone to watch a history, a sort of history nugget, which we got from Muhammad Hijab, who, by the way, used to be a history teacher. A lot of people don't know that, right? And Muhammad Hijab, mashallah, he studies a lot of history and he knows a lot of Islamic history. And in that short video, he explains how the Turkic people from the land of Turkestan, the ancient land of Turkestan, which today is Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, East Turkestan, and all of these lands, they produced foot soldiers for Islamic conquest to the east and the west. So we have the Turkic people moving and going and conquering, like the Seljuks and the Ottomans, the Roman territories. Then you get the Turkic people who go into Egypt and they become the rulers and they actually fight against the Mongols, right? Then you get the Turkic people who actually travel down and go to modern day India. Now, a lot of people don't know this, right? The Mughals, right, who set up the Mughal dynasty, which continued until the 19th century, right? The Mughal dynasty was set up by who? It was set up by Sultan, it's escaped my mind now, Babur. By Sultan Babur, right? Am I saying the right name right? Well, anyways, yes, we have the Babri Masjid after him as well. In India, we have that famous mosque that was destroyed by the Hindus. So that this Sultan, this Mughal leader, he traveled from Babur. Jazakallah khair to Sharan Khan for pointing out. So Sultan Babur, he actually traveled in from Afghanistan. He conquered northern India. He set up the Mughal dynasty, and they expanded the borders of Islam, and modern day India would not even exist without the Mughal Empire, right? And then they carried on into, the people who made the Taj Mahal, and then later on Aurangzeb. And so the entire Indian history, a lot of people think the Mughals were Mongol. The Mughals, Sultan Babur, they were Turkic. They were from Turkestan. A lot of people don't know this, right? So when you get this Turkic influence, like even, for example, anybody watching, if you're from Pakistan, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, or India, right? You're going to hear a word, ustad, right? Teacher. It's not an Arabic word. It's a Turkic word from Turkestan. But that word is now not even used in India. It's used even in Arabia. So the Turkic people from the land of Turkestan, they led to the expansion of Islam northwards, eastwards, westwards, right? 3 different regions. And Hijab made a beautiful point in the video. He said they came to the aid of Islam for not only generations but centuries, and now's the first time in history that the Muslims need to come to their aid, when usually it's them who came to the aid of Islam, right? And it's a very powerful sociological point that he made there.
Yes, subhanallah. Yeah, if you read up on your history, I totally agree with that. Yeah.
And someone saying Mughals were mixed with Turkic. I mean, Mughals and Turkic, there's obviously genetically they're linked.
Yeah.
So they have
we are all the son of Adam. Obviously, we're linked. Yani.
yeah. No, yeah, and interestingly enough, when we look at the ancient sort of battles, right? We look at the ancient issues that actually happened. These Islamophobes and these types of people, they say, well, you see, the Muslims, they went to a land, they conquered a land, and that's why people accepted Islam. When it comes to the Uyghurs, nobody conquered them. no Muslim army conquered them. They became Muslim through dawah. They became Muslim through evangelism, right? It wasn't actually through these types of things. So the other thing to keep in mind, and I think this is very important for everyone, and we can end the live stream upon this because I think it's an important historical point. You normally do this at the beginning of your talks. When did the Uyghurs accept Islam? Was it like 70 years ago, 80 years ago? Like how far does it go back?
So 934, and so early 10th century, Sultan Sa'd Burahan accepts Islam, and his whole city accepts Islam, and then through that it slowly goes into the other cities. And the Uyghurs were the first Turkic group to accept Islam and to make a Turkic Islamic kingdom, like an Islamic kingdom from Turks.
Amen.
First one. So this is before Ottomans, before Seljuks. So it was the Uyghurs that introduced Islam to all Turks. People need to remember this.
Yes, absolutely. And if we look at amazing Turkic leaders which came centuries later, like Sultan Arslan, who defeated the Romans in the Battle of Manzikert. This is way before the Ottomans, right? Where did he come from? He came from the east. There's this common misconception that the Turks today are from Turkey, the geographic land of Turkey. No, that land is actually Roman land.
Roman land, like
Roman land. Yeah, they actually came from the east. And I made this little clip on my channel. I took a picture of Ertugrul, right, from the drama, and I took a picture of a modern day Uyghur person, and I said, this is what Ertugrul probably looked like. He didn't look like, in the drama, people look very, very European. So, okay, that's great. Alhamdulillah, we covered quite a bit. Tomorrow, we have a live stream. We have a live stream tomorrow, which I'm going to put in the, inshallah, description. But I'm just going to bring it up here because it's very important what we're going to be covering tomorrow. So tomorrow, all these different universities, we're going to be doing a live stream, and I'm trying to look for the actual poster. It should be here. Here we go. So it's at 1 o'clock Eastern time, right? Which I believe the UK time is 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
And it's going to be myself, Louisa Grieve, and Arsalan. So this is a joint event in which we're going to be speaking about how students can get involved when it comes to the Uyghur activism. I'm going to be putting a link to this in the description. Make sure you attend this event. The Zoom code and the passcode and the timing I'll put in the description. By the way, guys, merchandise, right? Uyghur merchandise. I completely forgot to mention this, right? So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be putting all of the merchandise, the Uyghur merchandise that you see in the videos, like hijab wearing a shirt, or I'm wearing a shirt, or whatever it is, on our website. We're going to be putting the PNG files so anybody can download them in the world, go to a printer and print them out. Like, like this type of shirt. Or recently, I got this made for an iPhone, right? So you can actually get really nice stuff done. And, this type of, merchandise and we're not going to be selling it. It's free files for anybody to download to print out for yourself. But I'm telling you guys, when you get this type of merchandise and you print it out, you get a phone, or you get a hat, or you get this, you get that, people walk past you and they look at it. Like I have two Uyghur masks, which I wear. I don't have it here, but I have a black one and a blue one, right? When I'm walking around, people look. Some people, they give you like a thumbs up type of gesture, right? So people starting to recognize, the blue and the white. This refers to the Uyghurs. Like, that's a very important thing when people see it regularly. And, we have to make it If anybody, even somebody who's like, not so political, if they see the Palestinian flag, they will know straight away it's Palestine. When you see the flag of East Turkestan, people are like, what is that? Like my daughter, she's 5 years old. She looked at the flag, because I have a flag of East Turkestan at home, right? So she looked at the flag, and it's either the flag or somewhere else where she saw the flag. And she said, that's Baba, that's the flag of Pakistan. I said, no, it's not. This is the flag of East Turkestan. And she obviously didn't know. But again, it looks very similar to the Turkey flag, to the Pakistan flag. And these are our people. This is not some distant, Chinese citizens. This is not China's internal problem. This is our people. And if we don't do something about it, guys, and I think this is extremely important, if we don't do something about it, and this is what one of the brothers said not too long ago, said, our children are going to be asking us, Baba, were you alive when this genocide was happening? Like literally, I think to myself something, there are people alive today who were witness to the Nazi genocide. We had concentration camps for the Bosnians in the 90s, yet there was an uproar. Still, I think to myself, how was it possible? People were alive at the time that there was a concentration camp operation going on, and there was a genocide going on. And now I'm starting to think, oh my God, I'm one of those people. I'm alive in a time in history where there are concentration camps. And if I don't stand up, and of course I'm going to be asked by Allah on the day of judgment, but just in this life, the punishment will be that in 10, 15 years from now, when my children are at university and they're reading in history books about this genocide, either they're going to be reading these books from the perspective that the genocide was complete and there's no Uyghurs to speak of, or they're going to be speaking about, how a group of heroes, brothers and sisters from across the world, stood up to fight the Chinese Communist Party and won. Because I'll tell you guys something. This is a war. This is not like some like we're just protesting like Tibet. Of course that's very important, or Hong Kong, or these things. What's happening to the Uyghurs? This is a war. Now, we're not calling for physical weapons and people to pick up weapons, but this is a war which has to be won through the means of public relations, because China is like a narcissistic person. They cannot handle criticism. We had Dr. Burhan. I'm not sure if you saw the interview, Arsalan. I was trying to invite you to it. But we had Dr. Burhan on our live stream on Saturday. And he said that initially, when he threatened the Chinese government and said, I will go public, I have this voice recording of you threatening my parents, they released his parents, right? Initially. And that shows you the power of social media activism, right? I mean, your own family has been in the concentration camps, and you know the power of this type of activism and the impact it has. And the Chinese government, I want to put this to you, they sometimes act like a criticism, they don't really care about it. They have this wolf warrior diplomacy. Do you believe that bluff? Do you think that they really don't care deep down?
Yeah, it's very strange because China still cares about what the West thinks of them very much. Otherwise, they wouldn't spend billions of dollars funding the 50-cent social media army, their media outlets, banning, so they care about what the West say about them, so much so that they pay white people, Anglo-white people, to promote the CCP. So you'll see a lot of, we call these people shills, right? CCP shills, where the government pays them to promote, oh, look, Chinese people are out of poverty. There is no genocide happening to the Uyghurs. They pay. So you know why they pay those white people? We call them monkeys or white monkeys. They pay them so that their propaganda seems more believable. Now, when was the last time the United States the UK, Australia pay Chinese people to say how good Australia is or the UK is or America. You'll never, ever see this. So China, the CCP think that they are superior, but they are this is an inferiority complex that is being shown, and just the propaganda in itself is that bad that they don't even realize.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And for tomorrow's event, I'm actually putting up the link, which inshallah you guys should be able to see now. So that's the link. And if you click on that link, I'm just going to show you guys what you should be seeing.
If you get a share screen.
Yeah, I think you can you see that, Arsalan?
Yep.
Yeah, so when you go and click on that link, what you're going to see is the event that's set up tomorrow, March the 20th, 1 p.m. Zoom. And you can actually register the event and you can put your university there as well. Alhamdulillah. And I want everybody to really benefit from this, right? When we had this, this genocide going on and this oppression going on and these types of things that were happening, there was very little voices that were speaking up. And it was the coronavirus which accelerated the criticism of the Chinese government. And something Arsalan has been saying many, many times, right, on the live streams is, now is the time. And it's a small window of opportunity. It's not like a open forever, right? We don't know the future. So this is the time to get on it, because we're literally right now, the Western world is enraged at China's behavior. And, millions of people have been affected by the coronavirus, but we have the vaccines now, right? We have life going back to normal. People are going to forget. Then you're going to have this, leftist type of movement, which is going to be like, oh, no, let's not make the Chinese government the enemy, blah, blah, blah. This is the time to get on it, because if we miss this boat, right? If we miss this boat, we're going to be kicking ourselves, because you're never going to have, I believe, the level and the hatred of the Chinese Communist Party which exists today. You will not find that in the future. I'll tell you why. The Western world, you will get that. But the Eastern world, the African countries, the Middle Eastern countries, the Asian countries, who normally are pro-China because of trade deals, even they have been affected negatively by the coronavirus, which their friend spread through the world. So even right now, they are asking questions. And in the future, China is going to keep them sweet with money. But right now, it can't do that because of the pandemic, right? So this is why everybody needs to get behind the Uyghur issue. And never, ever. I mean, one of the things which, Adnan Rashid, often says, and other du'at say, and he didn't say in regards to the Uyghurs, just a general point, is, anything you do for the sake of Allah, even if it's to lift up a pen, Allah's going to appreciate that. Like that, if you do something sincerely for the sake of Allah, even if it's to send an email, even if it's to pick up a pen, even if it's to do something simple, Allah will bless that and Allah will appreciate that.
Yeah, totally agree. So, and we get that question a lot, what can I do? What can we do? Like, everyone's different. Everyone's got different skills. Everyone's got different connections. Educate yourself and then just work within your circle. Make those connections and make things happen, basically. Yeah. And and make sure you tune in live tomorrow and just see all the strategies and all the techniques that you could use. We as Muslims, we talk about, I wish I lived in the time of the Sahaba. I was in the Ghazawat. Well, this is it, this is our time. And we are faced with different challenges and different things. And as you mentioned, this could be, the Uyghur issue could be a vessel for many to get into Jannah, because the hardships of this world, this oppression is not going to last forever. Everyone, we will meet our Maker, and that's the time. What did you do? Like, there was this situation here. What did you do about it? We're just laying around and you had this opportunity. You were in the West. And I mentioned this a few times, like even just Muslims in general living in the West, right? Generally speaking, you've got family back in Lebanon, in Syria, in Yemen, or in Southeast Asia. You know, Allah has put you in a position of power to an extent. You know, the various countries that we live in the West have given us certain authorities and agency that we can do a lot of things that our own cousins and brothers and sisters, aunts and uncles in the home country are not able to do. And Allah will ask about this, you know, and this is a ni'mah, this is a blessing that you know, we should take advantage of.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, something that you said that was quite interesting was about, you know, a golden opportunity to go to Jannah, and this being a means. Like, you know, when I think about what we can do, like I'm talking about everybody that's not a Uyghur, right? I'm not speaking about Uyghurs here. Whatever you do, it's not going to cost you anything, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is something that Hijab pointed out in the last live stream that we did with Dr. Burhan. Now, Dr. Burhan, he was saying that in his village, 50 masjids have been destroyed. Right, in his village, there's now an underground dungeon prison, which he didn't have before. In his village, people hide the Quran now. And the Chinese government, the second time that they threatened to arrest his parents, the first time they let them go because, you know, he's threatening them with releasing the audio. The second time, you know, they basically said, you know, to him that if you don't fix up, then you know, we're if you don't stop your activism in Turkey, then we're gonna, you know, put your, you know, do something to your parents, right? Now, I want everybody to just listen to this. Yeah, he said to them, my parents are old and they've lived a life, right? They're 60, 70. I don't mind sacrificing them to save Islam in East Turkestan. I'm just paraphrasing his words. Like, and he was crying when he's on the live stream. How hard is that for someone to say? Because he knows he can't stop the activism, and he knows that if he doesn't stop, then they're going to simply put his parents into concentration camps. And, you know, we all know what happens there. But he just refused, and he said, no, I will not. Like, it's not costing you. Your family is not going to disappear by you getting involved in Uyghur activism. If you're a non-Uyghur, if you're a Uyghur, you're definitely facing something, right? People going missing, or even, you know, I'm pretty sure, you know, even if you're in Turkey or any place else, you know, you have Chinese people who are, or Chinese secret police and other people who are after you. But it's literally going to cost you nothing if you just you know, speak up against it. So, Alhamdulillah, we covered quite a lot. So tomorrow, I invite everybody to the live stream. Even if you're not a student anymore, we still welcome you to the live stream. Arsalan, any last words before we end, inshallah?
Yeah, as you mentioned, you're not losing anything, you're not sacrificing anything. And at the same time, the Uyghur issue is the only issue. You know, us Muslims, we are sometimes afraid to share certain things on certain issues. The Uyghur issue is the safest thing that you could talk about, share about, write about, because you've got not just the left and the right supporting the Uyghurs, you've got the extreme left, extreme right, you've got people of all shades, of all colors, all religions, everyone's on this. So you got nothing to worry about. And number two, the story about Brother Burhan, about him willing to sacrifice his family. And brothers and sisters, remember, every Eid al-Adha, every Qurban, it's not just about cutting up the lamb or the cow and, you know, giving it to the poor. And Allah is teaching us the sacrifice is not just you're sacrificing an animal. There will come a time in your life where you may have to be put into a situation of Brother Burhan, where, you know, sacrificing his family or sacrificing children. There are people that with 3, 4, 5 children in East Turkestan. They're in the boarding schools, and if they continue to live that way, they could, you know, grow up, end up being forced to marry Han Chinese people, become atheists. That's a huge sacrifice. And there was another story. This was about 2 years ago. There was a brother by the name of Abdurrahman Hassan, right? He was fighting for his family, his wife who was in the camp, and he literally brought the Chinese. He went to the Chinese embassy, right? Brought some money, and said, use this money, because I don't know if you know about this. If a family member gets executed in China, you actually have to pay for the bullet that is executed with. So he bought, while he was in Turkey, he got some money and took it to the embassy and go, look, I'm willing to pay for the bullet. Just put my wife out of her misery.
Maybe
can you sorry, just repeat that last bit.
Saying that, you know, his message, and you can find articles on this if you type in Abdurrahman Hassan, for example, that he was willing to pay for his wife's bullet for her to be executed, so that she doesn't go through the pain of one day, spending another hour, spending another second. That's the actual meaning of Eid al-Adha. That's sacrifice. It's not just sacrificing an animal.
So you said Abdurrahman Hassan, like that's the truth.
Abdurrahman Hassan, and this was a story like 2 years ago. He was a very wealthy man in East Turkestan, and he went to Turkey, and his family, and you know, he's still out there, but you know, he's not able to contact his family. But that's the sacrifice that we got to, and we got to learn from the prophets, Ibrahim alayhi salam, what he was going through when he was about to sacrifice Ismail alayhi salam, and actually learn from Al-Quran and Al-Sunnah, and you know, apply it, especially when Allah is testing all of us. If you're hearing this message, you may not be watching live, but if you hear this later, or this video gets chopped up in bits and pieces, you know, and you're hearing this, and you know, Allah is testing you on how you will act upon hearing this message. Brother, are you there? So yeah.
So sorry, if you just carry on for a few seconds, I just got to make I'm just trying to just do something. So if you just carry on with the message that we were just going through.
Yeah. So a lot of people, I'm just looking at the comments here, right? And they were saying, for example, that, you know, Uyghurs are not being killed, for example. Now, what's crazy is, to this day, China, if they want to quiet me up or quiet Uyghur activism up and basically turn us into liars, what's the best thing they can do? Give investigators unfettered access, right? And go, look, guys, there is no genocide. But they still have not been able to do that. They don't let anybody in. They don't let anybody in to talk to the people, on the ground to this day. And when people are let in, they are put on. If you've seen documentaries of North Korea, where people are put on special tours and they show them the best parts of North Korea, but they don't show all the labor camps, that's what happens every time people are allowed to visit the concentration camps. You are not allowed to talk to anyone. People are not allowed to leave. Now, Uyghurs are Chinese citizens. Now, they have the right to a Chinese passport. Not only are people not being allowed in, but people cannot leave as well, because they are afraid that Uyghurs will speak the truth. And those very few that have, you know, they left at a time where Uyghurs were able to have passports, and to get a passport, they were spending anywhere between 10 to 20,000 American dollars just to get a passport. And your average salary of a citizen in the region is like $5,000 a year. So,
you know, it's like it's almost like it's surreal, the level of cruelty and barbarism. You know, I sometimes think about I think you added another video, right?
It's not a video. It's just I just reminded me to, if you know, if some people are saying, oh, where should I donate? This is a good thing happening right now, where for the UK it's a UK tribunal to investigate China's alleged genocide and crimes against humanity against Uyghur and other Muslim population. So this is a crowdfunding that's happening as well. So something to support for those that would like to support.
Could you WhatsApp me that link so I can put it up, please?
Sure.
So this who's behind this particular thing?
All the details are project by Uyghur Tribunal. I believe they're based in
Oh
the
yes,
UK.
yes, I've heard of them. I've heard of them. I believe they're linked to the World Uyghur Congress.
Yeah, and a lot of organizations, NGOs, governments, MPs are behind this movement. Yeah, they're almost at their target. And yeah, every dollar, every pound, every, whatever currency you're dealing with counts.
Right. Yeah, so just WhatsApp me the link. I think that's a very important thing for people to get involved in.
Cool.
It's one of those things, again, that, when it comes to the Uyghur issue, we're dealing with something that we're going to have to dig down deep and, into our pockets and support this cause. Like even here, I mean, this is such small money, like £285,000, right? And essentially for what? For a genocide to stop. That's what we're trying to do, right? I mean, one person, if they come out of the camp, that's worth more than all the money on earth. Like what is, and these things go really far. Like I remember now that you mention it, I remember reading up something about them maybe a few weeks back. So, projects like this is very important. Also, in terms of donations, does Talk East Turkestan take any donations? Do you have a PayPal or anything like that?
Yeah, so our main page, if you just message us, we can give you so DM us and we'll give you the details.
So go to the main Facebook page and DM you?
Yeah. Go to the main Facebook page, or you can reach me on at Arsan Hidayat, and I can give you the details there.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's good. I was actually trying to get somebody to join the live stream, but it didn't quite work out. That's why when you were talking the last couple of minutes, I got a bit distracted because the person was messaging me back. But anyway, I think we definitely got enough traction for tomorrow's event, and also the stuff that we've been working on. So yeah, inshallah, tomorrow we have that event. Please click on the link, join up. Let's find out about it. So from yourself, Arsalan, and from me to everybody, our last message: join us tomorrow. Keep up the Uyghur activism. Every post that you make has a huge impact. Trust me, because you're reminding people. People forget. People are scrolling through, they see all these different things, they start to forget what really matters. So it's important for us to keep the momentum up. And from us, and from everybody who's watching, may Allah bless you for joining us. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.